So, good evening and welcome. My name is Sheena. I am a part of the Wellspring Calgary team, and we're so pleased you can join us for tonight's speaker session, talking to children and teens about advanced illness, what they need you to know, with Jessica Carroll, counselor living with Advanced Illness Center and the Children's Grief Center. Wellspring Calgary proudly provides this program in partnership with Cancer Care Alberta and Wellspring Edmonton, and tonight is our 8th offering. I'd first like to start by welcoming Diva, who's joining us tonight. One of the things that we hear over and over again is how important it is to hear from somebody who has been there and done that. So a special welcome to her tonight. She's going to start us off by sharing her own lived experience, and then Jessica is going to kick off her presentation. And again, at the end of the program, we're going to invite you all to turn on your cameras so we can have a conversation, and I will stop recording at that time. So Diva, I'm going to turn it over to you, and thank you so much for being here tonight.
Thanks so much, Sheena. Appreciate being here. So my name's Diva, and I'm 46 years old. I live in Calgary, and I'm a breast cancer patient. I have a daughter who's 10, one daughter. And, you know, what was it like for our family? Obviously, I think the hardest part of the whole process was trying to figure out how to talk to my kid about cancer. And that was, you know, we told her very early in the process, which I think was helpful so she could understand kind of what was happening as I went through surgeries and radiation and that kind of thing. Surprisingly, I did a lot of research into kind of how to talk to my child about cancer. Wellspring was really, really helpful. There's lots of resources with provided by Alberta Cancer Foundation and the Canadian Cancer Society. But surprisingly, when I told her, the very first reaction that she had was she thought that she could catch it from me. She got very kind of pushed back and was kind of like, didn't want to touch me or anything like that. And I thought, wow, that was really unexpected. I didn't think that that was the way that she was initially going to react. So that part I wasn't definitely prepared for, because I had to then talk to her about that, you know, she can't catch it and that kind of thing. It kind of evolved into her thinking that she might, as she started to understand things a bit more, she started to evolve into her thinking that her just being my daughter, that that experience might happen to her as well. So we had to kind of walk her through that. And then with time, she had gotten a better understanding of what cancer means and what it meant for me and what it meant for her. And from time to time, she did have feelings and questions of kind of mortality, which, you know, we had to go into discussions about that. And what I learned in talking to my child about my experience and having cancer in your family was that it really is a kind of slow process. It was a lot of simple, short conversations related to everyday things that made it kind of more digestible to her. So sitting down and having long conversations about it was, you know, just not, it wasn't good for her, and it wasn't good for any of us or my partner, who is her dad. The other thing that I learned is that what they share in their own personal settings and their school settings is her personal story, and it's not mine, and was partly part of her emotional processing after I found out that through her teacher that she had said that her mom had been diagnosed with cancer at school, which was a bit of a surprise. But I realized that that was part of her own emotional processing, and that, you know, that was her story to tell. And I probably also, if I had wanted her to keep those things confidential, and I probably should have mentioned that to her. I did. I'm happy to share my story, but it was a bit surprising that I heard about it. That her teacher had decided to do a unit about cancer in her classroom. So that was a bit surprising. The last thing that I would just say is that the Wellspring programs for families really, really helped. There was a group therapy session that was really helpful for me managing my fears around whether or not my daughter was okay, and related to kind of the cancer diagnosis and my health. This lifted like a huge amount of stress from me, knowing that she was doing all right. And then there were some other really helpful programs that were related around art therapy and working, just having moments of bonding with your child and that kind of thing, which were super helpful. So I'm sure that you'll learn a ton more from Jessica, and I appreciate you letting me share my story. So over to you, Jessica.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Diva. What a beautiful story, and thank you for your vulnerability and sharing it. I was thinking, this is such a perfect story or example of what we're going to talk about today. And I mean, I don't even need to present anymore. Diva, you've got it. You've got it covered. But no, it hit on a lot of points that we'll share. So just allow me to share my screen. And I think that I have it under control now, but we will see. Okay, can everyone, Diva, can you do a nod if you can see, because I can see you still? Awesome, thank you so much. Okay, so today we're here to talk about talking to children, teens about advanced illness, what they need you to know. And when we talk about advanced illness, of course, many people here today may have cancer, be experiencing cancer. And there can be some unique factors about living with cancer, and then some similarities living with any advanced illness that can be life-threatening and can cause fears about the future, cause those feelings of regret, some uncertainty, changes to life as we know it, changes to the family. And so we're going to just encompass advanced illness in this conversation today. I'm a counselor at Living with Advanced Illness Center and Children's Grief Center. You may know it as Hospice Calgary, or formerly may know it as Sage Center. We've done some rebranding, so just to identify the organization that I work for. And in my role, I provide support for children, teens, and families when someone is living with advanced illness and preparing for end of life. So I can support any age, children, teens. Typically, we don't do direct counseling with the little kiddos, but can definitely provide support for families who may have questions and concerns when they have young children involved as well. So the ways that we support families at Living with Advanced Illness Center, Children's Grief Center, is we can provide individual and family counseling. This can happen in person in the home, especially for folks who are not comfortable meeting in the community, or who may have some restrictions to leaving home. We can meet there. When school is in, I can meet kids in school, or we can meet over the telephone or Zoom. So especially since COVID, our options for meeting have definitely become more flexible and expanded a bit. We're also excited to announce that we will have an in-home volunteer support program coming in the fall, which will allow families to hopefully receive some of that support that they need in-home, as well as a spiritual care component that we will be implementing in the fall. You can look to our website to learn about other services, other supports, such as the village that's returning in the fall. That's a drop-in program for families to connect in their grief experience. It's also open to families when someone is living with illness. You can register, you can look online and contact for more information about that. We also have a lot of great online resources, a parent lunch and learn series that provides about hour-long, 40-minute to hour-long segments just about specific topics, and you can watch at your convenience. Likely resources similar to what Diva was saying about Wellspring, just we try to make it accessible that you can find the information that you're needing. I will mention too that we won't have time to cover everything. This is a pretty big topic to discuss, and we won't cover everything in this specific presentation, but we do have parent lunch and learns on our website specific to how to talk to children about illness and how to talk to children about grief. So if you have some questions that aren't answered, definitely feel free to refer to our website. So I would love to hear from you if you're comfortable and if you're able, if in the chat box, if you wouldn't mind letting us know if you're a professional, an individual living with illness, a caregiver, a parent, or a friend of someone living with illness. And if it feels right for you, also let me know what you're hoping to take away from this presentation. I can't see the chat box right at this moment, but I'll definitely be interested in learning what you're hoping to take away. And hopefully if we don't get to a question you had, then we should have time at the end to talk about it. So I just wanted to acknowledge that these are difficult conversations, and particularly when we're talking about illness with children and teens. It can be a very hard conversation to have, one that's emotional and vulnerable. And I just wanted to express my gratitude for all of you attending here today, whether you are an individual living with illness or a family member of someone living with illness, or someone who is supporting those living with illness. Just thank you for coming. And I assume that you're here to best support those that you care about. And that's a tremendous thing to do for someone, even just to attend a presentation and seek some more information. So I thank you for that. Some of what we will discuss, just to give you a bit of a roadmap for our conversation today. Hopefully we'll get around to all of it, but we'll talk about considering talking to your kids about illness, having multiple continuous conversations throughout your journey through illness, as Diva had spoke to in her story. Some of the common concerns that I hear from children and teens, and some of the responses, the grief responses that they may present with and that you may notice, ways to support your children and teens, and how to involve a community of support. So when I was thinking about what to share with you today in such a big topic, the key points that really stood out to me that I hope you will carry with you or reflect on throughout this presentation is: children know more than you think they do. You know your child best. Living with advanced illness is life-changing and it impacts the entire family. There's no right or wrong way to feel, and there's potential for hope and growth in grief. So the first thing, just to get us grounded into the rest of our time together here today, is I am hoping to if you feel comfortable, walk you through a safe space visualization. And this is something that I practice quite a bit with teens and with adults. And I actually received quite a bit of positive feedback from teens that this is something that they use and they find helpful for them when they're feeling anxious or they're feeling stressed. They need something to calm down and to breathe and to get in their bodies. So I'm aware that not everyone can access a safe place or has an experience of feeling safe. And so if it's an exercise that's uncomfortable for you, please feel free to not participate, to step away for a moment. And if you can access a feeling of feeling safe and you can imagine a place in which you felt safe, but you haven't actually had a tangible experience, that's okay too. So you can either use your imagination or you can recall a memory of a time that you felt safe. And so I would invite you to, if you feel comfortable, to close your eyes or to lower your gaze to an object below you. If you're sitting, feel free to have your feet touching the ground or just sit in a comfortable position. And we'll take a couple of deep breaths in through our nose and out through our mouth. In through our nose, out through our mouth. So as you breathe, I'd like you to think about a place. Maybe it's your favorite place or a memory of a place that has felt safe for you. And as you enter this place, take a look around and see what you notice. Maybe you are outside and you can see trees in the distance. Or maybe there's a body of water near you. Maybe it's in the room that you're currently in, a room that feels cozy and warm and safe. Take a moment to notice the colors that you see. Notice what you see when you look up. Notice what you see when you look around you. Maybe you're alone in this place, or maybe there's others with you. Whether that's people that you're close to, maybe they're animals, maybe they're pets, or maybe there's some wildlife. Notice what you see with you. You might have a journal to write in, or a book, or maybe you're painting. Notice whether you're sitting, maybe you're standing or laying, maybe you're walking somewhere. Notice how the ground or the floor or the bed or the cushion feels underneath you. Notice what you can feel as you move your hand across the surface. Maybe there's a breeze that's touching your cheek. Maybe the air feels warm, like a warm hug. Or maybe there's a nice coolness that brings you this sense of energy and joy. Notice what you hear. Are there any sounds in the background? Maybe they're the sounds of animals, or the breeze rustling through the leaves, or the gurgle of water in the brook nearby. Or maybe it's your favorite TV show, or your favorite music, someone telling you a story. Just notice what sounds you hear. And then notice what you smell. Are there any smells that stand out? Maybe it's your favorite smell, or the smell that helps you to feel the most relaxed. You may not taste anything, but you may also have your favorite snack or your favorite beverage. Maybe it's something that helps you to feel calm and safe or brings up a pleasant memory. Just notice if there's anything you taste. And as you sit here in your safe place, reflect on how you're feeling today. Maybe check in. Do you notice anything that you didn't notice before? Maybe there's some leftover fatigue or stress from the day. Or maybe there's some hope or excitement about the conversations we will have. Just notice how you feel. And then in your safe space, set an intention. How do you hope to show up to this talk today? And what do you hope to gain from it? Maybe consider a person in your mind that's the motivation for you showing up today. What would you gain that will help you? So as you look around, reflecting on these points, just remember that you can come back to your safe place anytime. It is here for you and you alone, and it is here for you whenever you need it. So with one last look, feel, smell, taste, hearing, take a deep breath in and take a deep breath out. Say goodbye to your place for now, knowing that you can come back at any time, and start to reorient yourself to the present moment, the room that you're in. Maybe wiggle your fingers or your toes if you're able. And then come back, hopefully with an intention for the remainder of our chat today. Thank you for taking the time to participate in that exercise with me. I feel a little bit more grounded as we move forward. So hopefully that will help me to be clear and succinct for you. So I wanted to address some underlying assumptions that I'm walking in with in this conversation about how to talk to children and teens about illness. So there used to be, or there still is, there's a common conception that grief occurs in stages. And so we say grief starts during illness. There are many losses, there are many changes that can occur from diagnosis. A lot of families are considering, what do we do? Where do we go now? How will life be different? How will my family be? Will the kids be okay? There's a lot of grief about changes, whether that's change in family roles, changes in how you used to participate in your family or in activities that you enjoyed and feel passionate about. Changes in communities, changes in belief systems. A lot of parents express to me the sense of loss of control and a desire to return back to how things once were. So when we speak about grief, we're speaking about the loss of something that is important to us or something that we hold valuable. There might be multiple losses. What we know is in conflict to that initial stages model by Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, that the stages of grief model that everyone references, is that grief is not linear. Grief actually is more like that squiggly line you see on the screen. it changes and we move through it, and people have different responses at different times, and might feel okay one moment, and then the next minute they remember something, and they're a crying mess. It's a journey, and it's unique to every individual. But how we address grief when we're, especially when we're looking at grief during illness, is that it's a family experience. So while grief impacts everyone individually and uniquely, it impacts the entire family. And when one person is grieving, then that impacts each family member, right? There's changes during illness that change the family system. And so, so we address, or we acknowledge that that grief is impacting everyone. And sometimes parents come to me seeking support for their children, and they're surprised when I ask about their grief experience. And we talk quite a bit about them. And what I share with parents is that when you acknowledge and process your own grief in the situation that you're in, it allows you to be present then for your kids, and allows you to model emotions, to share openly about illness if that's what you're deciding to do. So by helping yourself, you can help the family, and you can help children and teens. We understand, or our approach is that families are experts in their own lives. So you come with a wealth of knowledge and experience, of strengths and of skills and great capacity to manage. And a lot of parents and caregivers, and I'll say parents quite a bit, and I acknowledge that parents aren't the only caregivers of children, but just for the sake of ease and clarity, I will just refer to parents, because we know there's caregivers for people who are ill and there's caregivers of children. So I will just say parents. But parents often come and they have so many questions, and they're feeling uncertain about how to have conversations, how to handle things, how to manage. And a lot of the time it's simply me empowering them that they do know, and your kids best, and when you need some extra support with something. And so sometimes it's just navigating this uncharted territory and providing some reassurance that you have a lot of tools inside you, and it's just uncovering some of them. The other thing I want to acknowledge is that I'm approaching this conversation from a Western professional standpoint. Culture and spirituality influence our interaction with illness and grief. There are many cultural and spiritual practices when it comes to illness, when it comes to grief. And so I trust that everyone brings their own wisdom when interacting and engaging with this topic. And the suggestions that I offer, I invite you to take what fits for you and leave what does not, because the suggestions I offer will not apply to every family. So the big question, to tell or not to tell. I think Diva had mentioned, not being really sure about how to talk to her 10-year-old daughter initially, at the very beginning. And she shared that talking to her early seemed to be helpful. So these quotes are from children and teens that I've interacted with. And the top quote came from a teen who lived with a parent living with illness from young childhood. And as a teen speaking with me, they shared, "I wish I knew then I wouldn't be so confused." So they could recall in their, say, 7-year-old experience that parent was gone for long periods of time. Something was happening in the family. They weren't really sure. They weren't sure what was going on. They were feeling really confused. They felt some disconnection from the parent because of this confusion. And it's because they didn't know. They didn't know about the parent's illness. They had no explanations for why this was happening. And as a teen reflecting back, they thought, well, if I had have known, then I might have thought about the situation differently. I may have been able to connect with my parent. The second quote is another young individual that mom spoke pretty openly with the kiddos, and this young child said, it's helpful when mom tells me she's sad, then I know how to be. This child expressed quite a bit of appreciation, actually, for mom talking about what was happening, and expressing emotions and offering space to talk about emotions in that way. So there is no right or wrong decision when it comes to talking about kids. We do know that, kids may find out information. They often know more than we think they do. So having some clarity, having some information can provide them with a bit of a sense of safety and security, of knowing what's going on. Sometimes kids will imagine when they feel something isn't right, but then they don't have the information, their imaginations run wild, and they might think of scenarios that aren't aligned with what is actually going on. So sometimes what is happening is actually less scary than what they're thinking about. Kids can overhear things on the phone, conversations between parents, even behind those closed doors when you think that they can't hear, they often do. At school, sometimes information floats around, and somehow all of a sudden a kid says to them, well, your mom has cancer. Well, and this kiddo didn't know. Right? How alarming is that to come from someone else? So the benefit of having some conversation with your children to talk to them about illness is that you're providing them accurate information from someone they trust. I've heard from kids before, they express feeling angry and not trusting their parent because they found out about their parent's illness from someone else before their parent was able to talk to them. And then they felt like their parent was going to lie to them from then on. So having those conversations early, like Dive had suggested, provides some of that opportunity for them to receive the information ongoing, to be connected, and to really feel included in the family experience. There was this quote going around through COVID, if you all remember. I think it was, we were in the same storm, but we're not in the same boat, something like that. But I was thinking about it, and during illness, it's kind of like if we talk to our kids and we bring them into the experience, we can connect as a family into the same boat, moving through different storms that illness brings. So it's just a way for kids and teens to feel included, to feel connected to family, to trust that caregivers are providing for them, taking care of them, and letting them know what they need to know when they need to know it. So we've decided maybe we should talk to our kids. Maybe we'll think about it. Maybe we will. But then parents ask, well, how? How do I have these difficult conversations with my kids? Parents often express a lot of fear about, will I say the right thing? How do I get it right? There's a lot of pressure for that, to say the right thing, to answer all your kids' questions, to get it right the first time. There's fear of, will the kids be okay after I tell them? What if they're traumatized, et cetera, et cetera. And so it's a pretty big, a pretty heavy weight to carry when you're considering, well, how do I have these big conversations? So first of all, find out what your kids know. Like we had said, they know more than we think they do. So that might look like, if you're engaging in some conversation, it might be, you may have noticed that mom's been going to the hospital a lot lately. Do you have any questions about that? Or the other day you asked me why I don't have the energy I used to have to play catch with you. I would like to tell you why that is. Right? Do you know what kind of sickness daddy has? Oftentimes kids notice, right, when there's some physical changes, when someone's living with illness. And so just even starting with a very simple observation of what's going on. You notice that grandpa doesn't have as much energy as he used to, or he's sleeping more, or there's some slur to his speech. Whatever that looks like can be some great openers for inviting that conversation. You may wish to consider inviting the conversation beforehand. So that gives children a chance to prepare for having a conversation that is a little more serious. So I have something important that I would like to talk to you about, and I was hoping we could do it during craft time. Is that okay? You can offer choice. So sometimes some kids are ready to have that conversation, some kids and teens, and sometimes they're not. And really, sometimes there's information that you have the space and time to share as children are ready. Sometimes you have some information that's a little more timely, and you have to provide a little bit, at least, just to start the process of children and teens thinking about it, considering it, processing it. As you, so you think about the what you would like to share, how much information do I need to share right now? What's important? What do my kids know already? Maybe they're asking questions. What are they needing to know right now? Then you can consider how. So setting the scene for the conversation. Time is an important thing to think about here. Maybe having conversations when you won't be interrupted, or it's not right before a soccer game or right before bed when we have lots of time to worry. But setting a time, that space that's private and safe, and we have time to really talk, listen, and share emotions, and provide plenty of space for kids to ask questions. Kids may wish to bring a favorite teddy or a blanket or whatever. Teens might have some kind of item that helps them feel comfortable as well for this talk. That can all help in having the conversation. Sometimes you may wish to invite someone, if it's a hard conversation for you to have and you'll get emotional, sometimes having that extra support there can really help guide the conversation and be there to support you and to support the kids. It doesn't always have to be in a room, sitting down. Some of the most engaging conversations I've had with teens have been sitting in the car driving somewhere, or walking out somewhere in the community, or playing a sport. Sometimes for kids, it might be while doing artwork or drawing, doing crafts. Maybe it's all of you helping to cook in the kitchen, whatever that looks like for your family. What has worked in the past? Bring some of that in. Those are some of the tools that you have inside your family, that it's just reminding you. You know how to talk to your kids and to your teens. So how can we make this the most comfortable conversation for us all? Provide lots of space for connection. Revisit as necessary, which leads us to our next point. The telling is a process. It's not a one-stop shop. So like Diva had said so brilliantly, it was a series of small conversations, and a lot of them pertain to day-to-day things that were impacting her child. And that's what allowed her to digest some of the information. So you can always return and you can always build. So you can always add information, but you cannot take it away. That's a good point to, if you take anything away, maybe take that one. You can always add, you cannot take away information. So even if you start with just a little bit small information and that's it, and that starts, and we go on for a few days or a week or whatever it is before we're ready to talk about it again, fine. And then we continue to talk and we continue to have conversations. A family shared the suitcase analogy with me that I now like to share also with the families I support. And, suitcases and luggage come in all different sizes. And as an adult, you can carry a pretty heavy suitcase. And as a small child, if you can carry, a suitcase, it's likely quite a bit lighter. So we need to consider, how much we're sharing and what we're sharing with different age kiddos and teens. As kids grow and develop, they'll likely need more information. So, a kid learning about their illness when they're 6 will not have all of the details or the in-depth knowledge about the illness that they might seek later when they're a teenager or when they're 20. And now they have a greater capacity to hold more information. So we can always start small, and then we can build. We can increase the packing of that suitcase, and they can carry it. Children don't have the capacity to process all of their intense emotions and take on a ton of information. So, as an adult, you need to help them, even to carry that small suitcase. You might need to support them. Teens can start to wheel their suitcase on their own, and it might look a little bit bigger. This applies to having conversations. If you have 3 kiddos and one's a teenager and one's a preteen and one's a toddler, you may wish to have an initial conversation all together as a family and to share, the minimum of what you want to share about your illness. And then you may wish to have some separate conversations with, say, your teenager, who's going to have more questions and be able to take on more information than your toddler is. So we can include all family members, and we can also allow different spaces for kids to ask for more information as they need it. So illness impacts us in a lot of different ways. And so I get a lot of questions about, should my child visit the hospital? How do I prepare my child for seeing grandma or grandpa? We haven't seen them in a while, and now we're going to FaceTime and they look a lot different. How do we manage the changes in routines, the changes in our roles? It's not fair. My child is taking on all this extra responsibility. Lots of kind of practical considerations. And so when it comes to medical appointments, hospital visits, home care, it can be really helpful to prepare your child and your teen for what they're going to see, what's going to be happening. So if that's professionals coming into the home, letting them know all about that, who's coming to the home, who they are, what they're here for, what they're doing. A lot of younger kiddos have interest in the body and in medical equipment and everything else. So they may be really curious about all of that. And teens may, have an interest, and they may kind of just not have as many questions, and they may want to visit and they may not. So when it comes to hospital visits, you can offer choice. You can offer parameters around hospital visits or hospice visits, right? So some kids and teens want to visit, but they can only handle a certain amount of time. So sometimes it's short visits. That's all they can kind of tolerate. Sometimes kids and teens can handle a little longer visits. It just depends, again, on your child and what the situation looks like and what the relationship is and what they need. Preparing them for hospital visits might be, again, preparing them for what they're going to see, what medical equipment is going to be there, what changes have occurred physically that we're going to notice in the person who's ill that we didn't see before. Just giving them that chance to process and prepare themselves for what they will see. Sometimes FaceTime's an option. Sometimes kids don't want to go in to visit for whatever reason, and sometimes they want to FaceTime. So maybe there are alternative ways that we can engage that isn't coming to visit in person. Sometimes they want to come visit and then they want to go play on their iPad or with toys, or go on a visit to the cafeteria. And maybe there's a support system that can help you to manage that. Plan your visits for your kids and for your teens, for what they need. So what do they need? Is there something they want to bring? Some kids and teens I work with love to decorate. They love to draw pictures, send them to the room, to a hospital or hospice, whatever it may be. Some like to write letters or write notes, and maybe that's their way of really connecting with the individual. In your conversations, talk about your changes in family roles. What is it going to look like from here on out? You know, maybe dad used to drive to soccer every Wednesday and now dad's not able to. So maybe a neighbor or your aunt or someone else is going to have to drive them. Provide choices when possible. So if, you know, someone else needs to drive and it's not dad, maybe it's, you know, you can either go with your friend's mom or you can go with your uncle. Which do you choose? So-and-so is going to take care of you for the weekend and I'm going to pick you up. Would you like me to pick you up in the morning or in the afternoon? You're providing some choices when possible. That can provide a sense of control. Just like we had talked, I had shared, some parents feel a sense of a loss of control. Kids can also feel the same loss of control. Talking about changes routines. So sometimes, you know, you may have a very routine scheduled day-to-day experience, and sometimes those have to change to accommodate medical appointments, visits, whatever that looks like. There was some children that I worked with, and every time they went to a parent's appointment, they got to play in a park, for example. And that was kind of the way of accommodating the change in the routine. And then we got to do something special for ourselves as the kids. Some common grief responses that we see in children and teens. The 3 C's is, and Diva spoke to this wonderfully, is can I catch it? Did I cause it? And who will care for me? So children, mostly children, when it comes to can I catch it, worry about, you know, will I get sick? And they might need some reassurance that you cannot catch this illness. And so using correct language to define what the illness is really helpful in this way. So if you say, you know, dad has cancer, then you can describe how cancer is different from every other sickness. And kids will know, A, I can't catch cancer, and B, when I'm sick, I don't necessarily have to go to hospital for all these, you know, sick with the common cold, for all these treatments. Did I cause it? Kids, especially younger kids, engage in magical thinking sometimes. And that is, you know, I didn't clean my room, so now grandpa has Alzheimer's. Right? So it's providing, again, some reassurance that you didn't cause it, there's nothing that you did that caused this. This is what happens. It's not your fault. And who will care for me? So I see a lot of anxiety separating from caregivers, especially when someone is ill. So, or especially if a parent has illness, and then the healthy parent, sometimes kids will have a lot of difficulty separating, and they'll also have a lot of worry and sometimes nightmares about something happening to either to the ill parent or to the parent who is living. They might also express a lot of anxiety about will this happen to me, and their own health. And Diva spoke to this as well. Right. And so it's something that I think she said she wasn't prepared for, and a lot of us aren't prepared for this way of thinking. But this is how kids think, and they might need some reassurance. Sometimes it's not a matter of what they're saying, but what they're not saying, and how they're showing up. So a lot of kids will have somatic symptoms, physical symptoms, such as headaches and stomach aches. Your child might go to school and constantly be coming home with a stomach ache, but then they're fine when they're home, right? That speaks to some of that anxiety from separating. So they don't want to be away from you, and it's manifesting, and they're not really sure what that means, that their stomach hurts, not recognizing that it's because they're feeling anxious, that they're separated from their caregiver. A lot of kids and teens will experience difficulty with focus and memory. We as adults experience this as well. It can impact school. It's very normal to experience this. And sometimes just normalizing that this is what you're going through can be extremely helpful. A lot of teens especially speak to me about their worry about that they can't focus like they used to. They're worried about their grades. They can't seem to remember things. They don't feel motivated anymore. They don't have the energy. What's wrong with me? So a lot of this could be attributed to grief. Sometimes this experience. And so just knowing that there's nothing wrong with you in experiencing this can sometimes be helpful. There can also be some sensitivities to stimulation. So that might be noises, crowds. We might need breaks. We might need a space to step away, especially when it comes to schools. A lot of recommendations that we'll talk about are having kind of that space to go, or a place to go to take a break, someone to talk to, just being able to step away or have some accommodation when it comes to completing schoolwork. And especially in younger kiddos, you might see some of this regression in behavior. So returning to bedwetting, returning to sucking their thumb, things that they have mastered and now they're returning back to it. Could be a sign of, they're feeling stress, they're feeling grief, etc. And then of course, changes in sleep and having nightmares. That's a pretty common one too. And so practicing some good sleep hygiene, and again, providing reassurance and offering extra cuddles at night maybe is what's needed. It tends to be in the night. And of course, it's hard for parents when you're tired and you've had a stressful day too, and you're grieving and everything's happening and your kid needs you more at night now, because it's the quiet time when all the worries come to the surface. And that's the time that we need to spend with a little extra affection and some comfort there. So we spoke a lot about the common grief responses, during illness, and I won't dive into all of the developmental considerations because we just simply don't have time in this presentation to go into them. Again, there's a plethora of information on our website and to the links to resources about this. But I just wanted to highlight just, when you're talking about illness with kids, when you're monitoring grief responses, when you're engaging with them, just to notice, a couple of developmental differences. So, for example, infants, They look to you, they rely on their caregivers, they respond to reactions around them, and they're affected by disruptions in routine. And so maintaining some sense of routine, being present to meet their needs, taking care of yourself to take care of your infant. That's kind of what we're talking about there. Toddlers and children may need to be told information multiple times. So they don't understand permanence. They will need to revisit conversations. And so practicing some patience when they ask the same question, when they refer to something multiple times, it's in their developmental stage. Again, noticing those physical symptoms and behaviors, those come out quite a lot in toddlers and young children as well. And so just knowing that these things are normal. I also hear a lot of from parents expressing fear because their younger child has said, I want to go to heaven. And this is someone bereaved, but I want to go to heaven to be with blank, with grandpa or with mom or whomever that has died in their lives. And, what I'm hearing is I miss and I want to be with. Children don't understand the permanence. They don't understand the concept, right, of death and that you can't come back. And so just thinking about this developmentally and how you're talking to them and the support you're providing. Teens especially, and teens I really wanted to highlight because teens seem to be the most understood. They seem to express feeling that way, at least to me. They're really focused on identity. Who am I? What do I want to become? And all of a sudden this, their identity at a time when they're already considering who they are and who their community is, that's rocked extra by the fact that someone in their life is living with advanced illness and things are feeling scary and uncertain now. Teens talk to me about especially the loss of, what I had this plan. Like, what do I do now? How am I supposed to do this now that this person's living with illness? There can be a lot of guilt of I need to be there with this person, or I should have spent more time with them when they were healthy. I wish I wasn't so mean to her in our fights. I wish I had behaved differently and didn't cause so much stress and turmoil. Some teens don't feel stuff right away. Again, it's a developmental stage. They may process it gradually, but it might not come in an instant reaction. And a lot of those teens feel isolated too. And they say things like, I don't feel anything and I feel like I should. Something is wrong with me because I don't feel sad. And, all of my family members are crying and I'm not. So what's going on with me? So just normalizing that, this is really common. This is a really common experience. Doesn't mean that they're not impacted. Doesn't mean that they're not grieving. Okay? I've had teens express to me, they don't think I'm grieving because I'm having fun. So kids grieve in chunks and processes. So they process, they feel a little sad, then they play. And then they process, feel a little sad or angry or whatever it is, and then they play. So, and adults need that too, right? We also need to distract and to turn to play. And we can't feel continuous ongoing sadness and anger all of the time. And so sometimes teens want to connect, and that connection is providing them the distraction and the joy that they're needing. And then it gets misconstrued as, well, there's something wrong because they're not grieving, they're not talking to us about it. Teens love, or they typically prefer to talk to other peers. Sometimes that can be difficult when they feel misunderstood, when peers haven't gone through the same experience and they're trying to develop their sense of community, but feeling rather isolated. So while it's normal for teens to withdraw and isolate themselves a little bit more than, say, children, to take some more time to themselves to process in their own individual ways, sometimes they can also feel a little bit isolated from peers if they're not connecting with people who share that they care about them, who ask, connect with what they're feeling, and who really understand their experience. There can be some anger, and I intentionally don't speak about loved ones, because sometimes we have some conflictual relationships with someone who is living with illness, and we can also grieve that experience, and that experience can also be stressful. And so there can be a lot of mixed emotions coming up for teens when they have some anger maybe at the person who is living with illness. One teen said, "He is so selfish, I can't believe he would do this to us." Right? And there's a different sense of, well, he can't apologize now at this point. He can't return to doing the things the way that he used to. Right? That the chance or opportunity for reconciliation or relationship repair might not be there in the same way, which adds a whole other element of grief. So I'd mentioned some ways that we can support, having ongoing conversations, providing some opportunities for expressing emotions, for asking questions, things that Dive also spoke so clearly to, right? Providing choices when possible, providing concrete and honest explanations to questions. So simple and honest responses, so that it's clear, it's not confusing, it's not convoluted. Providing some extra affection, time, and connection. And maybe it's simply, it might not be us all talking as a family deeply about the illness and how it's impacting us, but it might be all of us watching a movie together. Just providing some of that space. And sometimes in those times of connection, that's when emotions come up, or that's when the worries that have been on children and teens' mind come out, and they decide to talk. Accept your child's unique reactions. They all look different, and some of it might be explosive anger. Some of it might be sadness and crying a lot. Some of it might be spending some more time in the room, and some of it might not even seem like they're impacted whatsoever. And that, I think, is the one that really throws parents quite a bit. And so it doesn't mean that they're not impacted, but they just not be impacted or responding in the way that you would expect at that time, especially for teens. Maintain structure, routine, and boundaries. That's providing a sense of security and safety for your children and teens. They have something that they can rely on when things are really uncertain and really wobbly. It keeps things a little bit normal at a time when a lot of things are not normal. Right? There's opportunity for growth and to learn skills through this process. Right? So while your child might take on more responsibility than you had intended for them to take on, and it seems like it's unfair, maybe they also learned to cook with you. Maybe you pass on some family recipes. Maybe your communication in your family has improved. Maybe there is the sense of independence now for your child that really empowers them. There are different, different ways of coping in a positive manner that can improve in some sense, even amidst such adversity. So when we talk about support, support is another way of supporting the entire family. So if there was ever a time to ask for help, this is the time. As you can see, this Charles Mackesy image here. What is the bravest thing you've ever said? Asked the boy. Help, said the horse. And asking for help can be really hard for a lot of people. And yet it can also be really hard to not ask for help. So I've heard from families about creative ways that they have reached out to their support systems. Some families have they've enlisted one person or assigned one person to deal with the communication and the updates about the person who is ill and what their needs are, because responding to everyone's "how are you" text can be very overwhelming. Or it might be asking for, gosh, whatever it is you need. Sometimes people need some gift cards more than they need tons of lasagnas to go in the freezer, and maybe you do need that. Maybe you need some support with food. Maybe you need some support with driving your kids to places, right? Because you can't be everywhere all at once. And maybe where you had multiple caregivers, now you're down to one or to two or whatever it is, and you need some extra support in that way. And I have heard from families, and we've processed that, the asking for help and how difficult it is. And when they did ask for help, they felt this huge sense of relief and empowerment in doing that, because now we can provide what we want to provide for our kids. So if help was not asked for, then the child would not get to go to their extracurricular activities, for example. So sometimes that desire to provide the things that are important to us kind of outweighs that the asking or the fear of asking for help. There are a lot of different communities for connection in terms of just non-official groups and things. There's a lot of resources, again, through Wellspring, Caregivers Alberta, Living with Advanced Illness and Children's Grief Center, different organizations that provide different ways of connecting or a lot of information about, for patients, for caregivers, for kids, right? So accessing these supports can really help your family through this process. And when considering if professional support may be helpful, like I had said, a lot of families come and they have the resources, they have the knowledge, they have the wisdom that they need, and they just needed a little bit of reassurance, a little bit of guidance, a couple of questions answered, and we're more than happy to provide that. If you ever have a question, if you ever want to reach out, please, reach out, call our center, and we can at least have a conversation about what you're seeking. Now, when it comes to providing ongoing counseling support, especially when it comes to children and to teens, it might be because grief is impacting connections with primary supports in a way that's impacting their ability to participate in daily living in the ways that they would. You might notice patterns of behavior that is atypical for your child. So, they might lose a bit of their appetite, or they might, have difficulty sleeping, or they may engage in the odd anger outburst. But if all of a sudden, your child's breaking windows or something at school and continues to, destroy objects, and this is really abnormal for what they would normally do, or they're refusing to eat and they're going days or whatever it is. I'm using kind of extremes here, but if you notice these behaviors, it's atypical, then you might want to access professional support. You may also want to access, if you're not sure how to have conversations like we talked about today and would benefit from professional guidance, then we're more than happy to accompany you, companion you on this journey.